I remember being your age and, well, being a high school student and imagining my future and really having ideas about what I wanted to do next and what I wanted to study. But I really didn't have many connections with adults in the working world. And so it was hard for me to picture what my working life, my career might look like. So I think this is a great program and I'm really grateful to be included. So thanks for having me. So I will tell you guys a little bit about what I do and a little bit about my career path to date. And then I'll show you a few slides from a project I'm working on that I think um, illustrates a lot of the work that I do and the others that work with me at PCI, Pronouski Chatham, PCI for short. So yes, I'm a principal vegetation ecologist. The principal part just reflects the fact that I am part of a core group at the company that helps make sure the company runs smoothly, that we are healthy financially, and that we're taking good care of our staff people. And I lead the science team at PCI. We have 4 different teams: the science group, the planning group, the design group, and the construction group. And we're an ecological consulting firm, so all of our work is in the realm of natural resources science and assessment and planning for restoration. So I work currently, most of my work is in one of 2 realms. One is planning restoration projects, and they could range from looking at a open space area that has been badly damaged by bulldozers fighting a recent wildfire and trying to figure out how to reestablish sensitive vegetation on it, um, to working on a riparian area that's been degraded over time by overgrazing by cattle and figuring out how to restore that. And then on the other part of my work is really working with large conservation landowners like land trusts or the regional parks in Sonoma County and Marin County or open space districts. When they acquire a new property, I often work with them to help them understand what they have on that property, what the natural resources are, and where sensitive locations are, what could use restoration, and how to provide public access to places like that while still protecting natural resources. Um, as at PCI, we have a multidisciplinary team. So I'm the part of the science group. I've got a couple of other biologists that work with me, a wildlife biologist, and a couple of other plant ecologists. We also have a forester. And then our design team is landscape architects and civil engineers, and they all with a focus on restoration and native habitats. And our planning group is folks who are expert in understanding regulatory compliance and environmental analysis for projects. And then our construction team, we call it construction, but it's really implementing restoration. So it might be planting plants in a wildland setting and figuring out how to keep them alive. It might be taking down a small dam so that fish can pass through and restoring creek habitat. But those are the 4 groups at PCI, and we work closely together. So it's a lot of fun. It's challenging. As a consulting firm, we work project by project. So there's always a new property we're working on, a new watershed, a new client, and definitely keeps us on our toes. And I appreciate, though, that I have this group it's a close-knit group, and I always feel like I have someone to kind of reach out to if I'm stuck on a problem. There's always someone around to brainstorm with. And we do have our different perspectives. The perspective of me as a vegetation ecologist is different from a landscape architect, but we have overlapping goals and values and areas of expertise. So it's a lot of fun. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I got here to this point in my career. I grew up in Maryland, and where I lived, I had easy access to forests and creeks. I would spend all summer playing in the creeks as a kid and walked to school through oak woodlands every day, and just it was just part of the fabric of my childhood. And I loved it, and that was just it seemed normal to me to have access to that kind of open space. Um, and then when I was a teenager, I remember this one moment where I was on a walk and I encountered an area that had been cut down. The forest had been cleared for some office park development or something like that. And that moment just really has stuck with me because I was just so, uh, I was so hurt. I felt so strongly about it. It was so painful to see. And it really just got me thinking, hey, this is a topic I'd really like to work on in the world. And so that began my process. I went to college and studied ecology. I went out to California to study at Stanford, and that was a fabulous experience. And while I was there, I started volunteering with a local nonprofit that had a restoration project on Stanford's lands. Stanford has 1,000 acres of open space next to campus, and the oak woodlands on it were declining. They weren't regenerating, mostly because probably the overgrazing by cattle and other changes that people had made to the environment just across California that made it harder for native oak trees to become established. So I started volunteering on that project and had a lot of fun there. That really introduced me to the idea that the human part of the equation is really an important place to focus when we want to affect change in the natural world. And the nonprofit that led this project, they were bringing volunteers from the community out, anyone from school kids to senior citizens to corporate groups. And they were planting trees and taking care of trees and monitoring and doing studies, but they were also really focused on getting people to know their local habitat, to start to see how people had affected it, and to just think more broadly about how our lives, our choices, our values affect the world around us. So that really kind of piqued my interest and has been a thread throughout my career, just a focus on the human side of the ecology equation. I ended up managing that project after I graduated from Stanford and worked on that for quite a few years. And then worked with the Center for Conservation Biology at Stanford, which was really fascinating. Lots of well-known ecologists work there and doing lots of forward-thinking research. And a lot of graduate students were there. And I started to think, do I want to pursue a PhD myself? And I really debated about it for quite a while. And my parents really thought that would be a great idea. but I decided I didn't. It was a very intense environment there. And that was not quite what I thought I was looking for in my life. And I also realized I really like the applied world of science, where I'm very interested in more basic science as well. But for my own work, I'm really inclined towards the applied realm, where you're taking scientific concepts and applying them to real world problems that are right there at hand. So shortly after that, I got married and had a baby and moved up to Sonoma County with my husband. This is where he's from. And at that time, after a year or so, I decided I would like to do a master's program at Sonoma State. And that was very applied. And that also I really enjoyed. Lots of interesting people doing great research there. And I studied vernal pools. I don't know if you guys know about vernal pools. They're kind of unique wetlands that occur here in Sonoma County and a few other places in the world, but they have unique plant and wildlife connected with them because they have this unusual um, regime of drying and filling with water over the course of the year. So I was studying those. There are endangered plants that are associated with them here on the Santa Rosa Plain, and land managers were really trying to figure out how to manage the non-native plants that were encroaching on these pools. And so I studied how we might be able to use livestock grazing to help meet that goal. So I really enjoyed that, and that led to consulting work on vernal pools. And that in turn led to my current job. So a friend of a friend just called me up and asked if I was interested in working with PCI. And that's definitely been a theme that in my career, one thing leads to another, one opportunity leads to another. And so that was in 2008, and I've been here since. And my work has definitely expanded from more small scale botanical efforts to larger property wide or watershed wide efforts, and also beyond the botanical to managing projects that have lots of different elements um, as part of them. So I'm really grateful that I've had all these opportunities to work in a realm that I'm really passionate about. And if I were going to give you guys any advice, it would be, I think, find a thread that you're passionate about or that you care about in the world, and follow that thread. And working hard and collaborating with lots of other people along the way, at least for me, has really led to lots of interesting opportunities.